It's a chilly one out here today. Looks like it's gonna rain too. Guess I should keep my keys in my pocket. It might jingle a little bit. All right. Today we're gonna be talking about how comfortable is the 2025 Toyota Corolla hatchback. Driven the Honda competitor, you know, the regular Honda Civic hatchback, and I've ridden in a Mazda 3. So one of the big differences between this car and at least that Mazda is the rear suspension. This has a multi-link rear suspension, whereas the Mazda, what is it called, like a torsion beam or something like that, it's connected in the back basically. Both of the back tires are connected to each other essentially, or to the frame of the car directly. Just leave that there. We don't need that. So what I want to talk about is what's the ride quality like compared to those other cars, because you know, these are commuter cars. They're really bought to get good gas mileage, to be reliable, and to drive back and forth to work, on road trips. And how loud the car is, we've explored that in the miles per gallon video. I talked about how loud the car was at 65 compared to 45, and it's very quiet. You don't really get much road noise. There's like no wind noise. I'm really not having to raise my voice very loud right now because it's very easy to talk in the cabin even when you're up to speed. It's really insulated in here, and you know, that's going to be the one big difference compared to the Honda. The Mazda definitely was insulated well, and it was a quiet cabin. It's just that back seat, if you're carrying passengers or you're going on rough roads a lot, you might want to reconsider that Mazda, or at least take it on your rough roads and see what that really feels like to you. If you've never come from a more stiff, sporty car, you might think that car, the back end's a little bit lively. Over, honestly, small and large bumps, it kind of acted a little weird. This car, though, over small bumps and over large bumps, it does great. We'll hit a few speed bumps in this parking lot up here so you can see how it does. Do one at lower speeds just so you can hear. We'll speed a little bit up for the other one just so you can hear what a thunk sounds like. Very solid sounding suspension and frame of this car. Even when you hit little stuff, it just kind of floats over top. I think there's a speed bump over here. Oh, maybe there's not. See some of these divots just going. It's a pretty rough parking lot, and it's far from even. And I mean, even this little bump right here, can't even hear any of the thud or anything like that. Let's go. Let's go to some slightly different varying roads just so you can get an idea of what I mean. It really takes the bumps very well. There's not much sound if you hit a large one or if you hit a small one. There's a nice road up here that actually has decent speed, and you can, it's got the cement road, so it's got those spacers in between. And those are normally really loud on a lot of cars, especially when you get the bigger rims. You know, light cars, you just hear it ping through the cabin. A lot of times you can feel it in your spine too. Not so much for this car though. I'll take you on that road now and you'll hear what I'm talking about. It's just a very low pitch, you know, thump when you hit stuff, and stuff in the road, not, you know, literal things, but bumps and undulations. And it's not disturbing at all. None of that shock gets transferred to you. The sound is muffled very well by the insulation. And it's just a quiet, comfortable car. If you're somebody that lives around somewhere with rough roads, you know, like really, really rough roads, you might want to test drive the XSE and the SE, because the 18-inch rims on the XSE does affect, you know, how it takes bumps and how it rides. And it's actually 1 mile per hour, or not mile per hour, mile per gallon difference as well, if you really care about that. But you might need the SE if you're in extremely rough terrain, maybe somewhere where it snows and roads take a lot of beating, or maybe some really old roads that don't get updated. That smaller rim and the thicker tire will help you out a little bit. But honestly, the roads around me in Virginia aren't amazing, and it does great. There's definitely some bumps and potholes and speed bumps on my daily commute, and I never find myself, you know, jumping out of the seat or you know, hearing the suspension bottom out, or not bottom out, the car bottoms out, but the suspension max out and, you know, hit the stops. I haven't experienced that in this car once, and I'm a pretty conscious driver in terms of driving over bumps and stuff. I don't typically hit them, at least not on purpose. About 35 up to 40 right now, and you can see how quiet it is in here. I haven't changed my voice volume. You should be able to hear me just fine, as you were before. That is one thing that I really like about this car. If I take a phone call on the speaker, I've never heard anybody say, "Are you in the car?" Because, you know, most of the time they can notice when you're on the car speaker. It sounds like crap. You can hear the road, you can hear the tires, you can hear the wind, and the big thing is the speaker quality. The microphone quality is really bad. This car, nah. I can hear the person very clearly, they can hear me very clearly, and not once has anybody ever noticed that I'm in the car when I take the call. I actually asked a few people when I got the car. I took calls in the car, and I asked them, "Hey, how does this sound?" I'm testing out my new sound system in the car, and they were like, "It sounds great. I mean, it sounds like you're holding the phone up to your ear." So I was pretty surprised with that. That just kind of is a little notch to how insulated the car is. Yeah, when you step on it like this, you'll hear the engine a little bit. It's a 4-cylinder. It's not a turbo. It's not a 6-cylinder. But once you're up to speed, you don't hear the engine at all. You just kind of coast, whether it's 50, 45, or up to 75, you know. I'm sure everything above 75, you'll start to hear it because it'll sit above 2,500 RPMs. Just listen on this road right here, though. Those used to pop me out of my seat in my GTIs and my Focus ST. And this just kind of floats right on over it, right at 55 miles an hour. Those humps are about 2 inches, 2.5 inches off the ground. They're not small. I mean, the tires and the suspension are doing their job on that type of road in this car. And the pitch, you know, when we hit some of those bumps, you saw it, it really wasn't bad at all. Yeah, I'm sure you could get better in a Lexus or a BMW, or I don't know, something that's got more weight to it, more insulation, and guess what? More money invested into it. I think the price point for this is about $3,000 too expensive, but it sits just about right. If you can get one of these, the XSE fully loaded, if you can get it under $29,000, you're doing good. And it's worth every penny. The car's going to last a while. If you're worried about the technology, which I've talked about before in my first video, then get the technology warranty. It's like $1,500, $2,000. And if you don't like these screens, then that'll protect you if that screen does decide to give out. Just to give you an idea of how insulated this cabin is, listen to all this car traffic outside. Now I'm going to put the windows up. Here comes a big group of cars. Silent. I mean, yeah, you can hear them, but it's not so bad that it ruins your whole experience. I'm gonna go ahead and step on it a little bit here. You can hear what it sounds like when you stress the engine. It's about a 90% throttle. The CVT does a good job of getting you up to speed, and then once you're there, you're just coasting. This is about 65 miles an hour. It's a very windy day today too. And I mean, I could lower my voice even lower, and I feel like you guys can probably still hear me. We'll go back over this uneven road again on the other side. It's also got some expansion joints in there. And I'll be quiet so you guys can get an idea of how insulated this cabin is. Do a little bit above 60 here, and just listen to this pretty rough road. More do you need? I mean, let's find a speed bump. Let's find a speed bump, because that's the one thing I did not find, and I know that's the one thing people are gonna want to see. Is what does this car look like going over a speed bump? MPG's been doing very good. If you haven't seen that video yet on the real world MPG for this car, I highly recommend you check it out. It's got some good information. I think the car does better than advertised. I know I'm in ideal case scenario, one person in the car and flat land, but it does give you a good idea of what the potential of the vehicle has, especially with the temptation to spend that little bit extra and go hybrid on a lot of cars. It helps to know, do you really need the hybrid? There's a Cybertruck over there, and it looks like a Halo 2 Warthog. There's the wind at 45, and there's the wind gone. Let's do some speed bump tests in here. We'll wrap it up. You know, the seats are fairly well bolstered. They're not track ready or anything, but get you to where you need to go, and you push it through a corner a little bit, it doesn't throw you out of the seat. could have swore there's a speed bump right here. Maybe it's on the other one. I think it is. Yeah, this car is quiet. It's well insulated. It rides better than that car that just drove by. It's a regular Honda Civic. I don't know. I drove that Honda and it felt like it was really lacking insulation. You could hear the road a ton. You could hear every single little bump. Yeah, the tire noise was just loud. The wind noise was loud. I was really surprised at how expensive the car felt, but how, like, when it was sitting still, you first get introduced to it, and then how cheap it felt once you actually start driving it. Some good uneven pavement right there, and we're just cruising right on over. Here's a speed bump. We'll hit this right at 20 miles an hour, a little less. And yeah, that was sharp, but I didn't feel that in my butt at all. The suspension took 100% of that, and it had no issues doing it. That one was about 3 inches off the ground. I know some speed bumps are larger, but that one's like one of those short, stubby ones, so it gives you a good idea of what it would be like to maybe hit a pothole or, you know, hit maybe like a rock on the road, or just some small lump that is a quick jolt to your suspension. Let's do it one more time. You can watch the dash right there. The car doesn't move much at all. 18 miles an hour. Yeah. The pitch of that one's definitely a little bit higher, but it's also a speed bump, so it's kind of there to alert you. Go ahead and wrap it up there for today. I think that gives you a good idea as to how comfortable this car is. I'd love to do a comparison on some of the other cars so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about with the Honda and the Mazda. But you guys can also look up other videos online just comparing those suspension setups and what people feel like when they actually get in them and go over real bumps and carry things in the back. What do the rear passengers feel? This car is definitely not for 4 grown adults, but I mean, you don't want your kids to be too uncomfortable and complaining. So I mean, if you got 2 little kids to put in the back of this car, then like, I think they'd be more comfortable overall with the ride quality than compared to the Mazda, at least. Can't say the same for the Honda. Honestly, they feel about the same in terms of ride quality from the Honda to the Toyota Corolla. But my main issue with the Honda was the sound. I mean, every single bump, it was just like a bass, just a symphony of sounds coming from my suspension. It was crazy. And then you add in all the air and the wind noise, and it was not a pleasant cabin to be in when you're actually on the road going. Obviously, the infotainment worked good. The switches and the dials feel really good in that car. It's just the noise you hear when you're driving are not ideal. They don't make you feel good about the car in terms of its quality. Whereas this car, the second I got in it and started driving it around, I hit a few bumps and, you know, got above 60 miles an hour and heard the road noise and the wind noise, I was impressed. I mean, it did better than I thought it was going to do. It was even quieter and even more comfortable than I expected it to be. So that kind of says a lot. Go ahead and end it here for today, and alright, well, I guess that guy's got places to be, so careful with people like that on the road. Pay attention and stay safe out there. Cheers.